Imagine waking up one morning to a world that's louder than ever. A constant blast of opinions, notifications, and breaking news. But in all that noise, you sense a deep silence. The silence of real, critical thought. This isn't a scene from some dystopian novel. It's the reality of the 21st century. We're seeing the rise of a phenomenon that can only be called collective stupidity. This isn't about individual IQ scores. It's about a scary trend. Smart people, when brought together by modern systems, start acting collectively dumb. They're outsourcing their reasoning, their morals, and even their perception of reality to the group. How did this happen? How did the very tools meant to connect and inform us start to shut down our thinking? This is the story of how we began trading the hard work of thinking for the easy comfort of belonging. And before we get into the heart of this paradox, take a moment to subscribe. This channel is for people who believe the most important rebellion of our time is the one that happens inside our own minds. So, what exactly is collective stupidity? Let's be clear. It's not about a lack of information. We're drowning in facts. It's the way we change our opinions to match what we think everyone else believes. It's a psychological glitch where our powerful baked-in human need to fit in overrides our ability to make rational evidence-based decisions. The social psychologist Irving Janis famously diagnosed this with his theory of groupthink back in 1972. While the term was first coined by William H. White Jr. in 1952, Janis identified it as a process where a group's desire for harmony leads them to agree at all costs. This makes the group shut down conflict and rush to a consensus without ever really stress testing their ideas. In simple terms, it's choosing to fit in over being right. It's that moment you bite your tongue instead of rocking the boat. It's that subtle pressure to go with the flow because you're worried about how you'll look if you speak out. This isn't just a boardroom problem, it's a societal one. It happens in political movements, corporate cultures, online communities, and even in our own families, where everyone mistakenly assumes they know what the group wants, leading the whole crowd to do things that nobody actually prefers. Just look at the modern media landscape. A story, usually stripped of all nuance and cranked up with emotion, goes viral. It's shared millions of times. Its headline blasted everywhere. The algorithm, which is built for engagement, not for truth, shoves it further into our feeds. A consensus forms, not because a bunch of people investigated the facts, but because of sheer momentum. To question the narrative at that point feels like trying to stop a tidal wave. It's just socially and psychologically easier to nod along, like to share, and to join the chorus. In this kind of environment, our critical faculties, the ability to pause, question assumptions, and seek out other viewpoints, aren't just unrewarded, they're actively discouraged. Dissent gets framed as disruption. Nuance is seen as weakness. And the person who says, "Hang on, let's think about this for a second," is often painted as the villain, standing in the way of the group's righteous mission. This is collective stupidity in action. It's a social force that makes smart people agree to dumb ideas, not because they're convinced, but because the pressure to conform has become more powerful than their own judgment. And as we're about to see, our modern world has become the perfect incubator for it. So, how did we get here? How did we build a society that, with all its tech and information, seems to be systematically taking apart our ability to think for ourselves? It's not one single villain, but a perfect storm of systems and psychological quirks, each one making the others worse. We need to diagnose these architects of our decline, not to point fingers, but to understand the design of our own mental cages. Our first architect, tragically, is the very place designed to build our minds, the modern education system. For more than a century, many of our schools have been built on a model that prizes knowing things over knowing how to think. Back in the day, that made sense. Knowledge was scarce. But today, information is everywhere. It's the skill of thinking that's rare. And yet, the system hasn't changed much. Many education systems still reward memorization and conformity over real curiosity. Students are trained to find the right answer, the one that will be on the test, instead of challenging the question itself. We've devalued subjects that sharpen thinking, like logic and deep language analysis, in favor of rote learning. The classroom, which should be a dynamic space for respectful debate, too often becomes a place of passive listening. The system rewards students who follow the rules and can spit back information accurately. It often, without meaning to, penalizes those who question, who disrupt, and who think differently. Even dedicated teachers who want to foster critical thinking are often stuck. Many were never trained in how to teach these skills, and state-mandated curricula demand that so much material be covered that there's no time for the deep, messy process of critical discussion. Add in unmanageably large class sizes, and the classroom becomes less about intellectual growth and more about crowd control. The result? Students can graduate with heads full of facts, but with minds untrained in analysis, argument, or intellectual humility. They've been taught what to know, but not how to think. They learn that success comes from finding the consensus answer, a lesson they carry right into adulthood, making our schools the first training ground for groupthink. The second, and maybe most powerful, architect is our new digital environment. We live in a world of information overload, a flood that has rewired how we process reality. Our brains aren't failing, they're adapting. But they're adapting to a system that fights against deep reflective thought. This has created what some call clip thinking. We're hit with a constant stream of short videos, headlines, memes, and status updates. Our overwhelmed brains adapt by learning to skim, tag, and forget information instead of engaging in the slow, deliberate work required for real thinking. And this constant task switching has a huge cost. Studies show knowledge workers switch tasks as often as every 3 minutes. And it can take over 20 minutes to get your focus back. We're essentially living in a state of permanent distraction. At the heart of this are social media platforms. These are not neutral town squares. They are designed to do one thing: capture and hold your attention. Their algorithms aren't fine-tuned for truth or nuance. They're tuned for engagement. And the easiest way to get engagement is with emotional, outrageous, and affirming content. Complex, nuanced arguments are at an algorithmic disadvantage. They're less shareable, less likely to get a strong, immediate reaction. Recent brain scan studies on young adults are starting to show that while activities like watching TV can be linked to increased focus, social media use is associated with a decrease in focus. The chemical effects are also intense. These platforms are built to trigger our brain's reward centers, creating a craving for instant gratification. This constant stimulation messes with our cognitive efficiency and memory. It's even led to digital amnesia, where we lean so heavily on our devices for information that our own ability to remember things starts to fade. Even more disturbing, heavy social media use is correlated with a negative impact on critical thinking skills. The very platforms we use to connect are conditioning our minds for shallow, reactive, and emotional thinking, creating a feedback loop. The platforms reward shallow content, which trains us to prefer it, which incentivizes more shallow content. The final and oldest architect is our own psychology. Humans are social creatures. For thousands of years, our survival depended on belonging to a group. This has left us with a deep, primal fear of being cast out and a powerful drive to conform. The psychologist Solomon Asch showed this with chilling clarity in his famous conformity experiments in the 1950s. He found that people would literally deny what their own eyes were telling them just to agree with an obviously wrong group. This urge is supercharged in our hyper-visible world. In the past, having an unpopular opinion might have made you the talk of the village. Today, it can make you the target of a global online mob. The social stakes for disagreeing have skyrocketed. This creates a climate of fear where people are less and less willing to express nuanced or unpopular ideas. On top of that, in an age of anxiety and uncertainty, the simple, black and white narratives offered by a group can feel incredibly comforting. When the world feels chaotic, there's a powerful pull toward ideologies that offer easy answers and a strong sense of us versus them. This is fertile ground for collective stupidity. The group's identity becomes a substitute for individual thought. We trade our intellectual independence for the psychological safety of belonging. As Søren Kierkegaard once observed, everything continues, and yet there is no one who believes in it. We go through the motions of agreement, not because we believe it, but because the alternative, to stand alone and think for ourselves, has become just too scary. We've looked into the abyss. We've diagnosed the systems and psychological traps that lead to collective stupidity. And honestly, it can feel pretty bleak, like we're caught in a tide we can't fight. But that feeling of powerlessness is exactly what fuels the whole phenomenon, and it's the first thing we have to reject. The solution isn't a simple life hack. It's not about winning more arguments online. It's something far more personal: a rebellion, a quiet, internal revolution against the lazy comfort of conformity. This isn't a rebellion fought on the streets, but in the silent, sacred space of your own mind. It's about reclaiming your intellectual sovereignty, and it's built on three ancient virtues that have become radical acts in our modern world. The first act of rebellion is to practice intellectual humility. In a world that rewards loud, unshakable certainty, humility is a superpower. It's the simple, profound recognition that you might be wrong. Intellectual humility isn't a lack of confidence. It's detaching your ego from your ideas. It's understanding that your beliefs are not you. They are tools for understanding the world, and tools can be updated, refined, or even thrown out when they stop working. Collective stupidity runs on the illusion of being untouchable and morally superior. It convinces us that our side has a monopoly on the truth. Intellectual humility shatters this. It forces you to ask the hard questions. What if the other side has a point? Where are the weak spots in my own argument? What evidence could actually change my mind? So how do you practice this? First, actively seek out smart people who disagree with you. Don't just tolerate them. Engage with their best arguments. Read their books, watch their lectures, and try to see the world from their perspective, not as a caricature to be defeated. The goal isn't always to change your mind, but to understand why a reasonable person could see things differently. Second, learn to argue against yourself. Before you lock in a position, take the time to build the strongest possible case against it. This is steel-manning an argument, the opposite of the all-too-common straw-manning. If you can't state the opposing view in a way its followers would recognize and respect, you don't really understand the issue. Finally, get comfortable saying, "I don't know." In our culture, that can feel like weakness. Reframe it as a mark of intellectual integrity. It's the honest starting point for all real learning. The second pillar of the rebellion is embracing solitude. Our world is terrified of silence. We fill every spare moment with podcasts, music, and the endless scroll. This constant stream of noise is a direct assault on our ability to think deeply. A brain that's never given a moment of peace loses its ability to reflect, to connect ideas, and to turn information into real knowledge. Collective stupidity is a disease of the crowd. It can't survive in the quiet of a mind at peace. So, you have to intentionally carve out time to be alone with your thoughts. This isn't about being lonely. It's about being present with yourself. It's in these quiet moments that you can finally hear yourself think, away from the roar of the collective. How? Schedule solitude like it's an important meeting. Start small, 15 minutes a day with no phone, no computer, no music. Just you. Go for a walk. Sit in a quiet room. Your brain addicted to stimulation will probably scream for a distraction. Resist. That discomfort is a withdrawal symptom from the drug of constant connection. During this time, practice deep reading. Not skimming articles, but the slow, immersive reading of a challenging book. A book forces your mind to follow a single, sustained argument for hours. It rebuilds your attention span and exposes you to ideas with a depth you'll never find in a tweet or a 3-minute video. Turn off your notifications. Leave your phone in another room. Give your mind the gift of focus. Solitude and deep thought are how you sharpen the blade of your mind. The final and most critical act of rebellion is to cultivate intellectual courage. Humility and solitude get you ready for the fight, but courage is what allows you to step into the ring. Intellectual courage is the willingness to think and speak differently. It's the choice to stand by your reasoned conclusions, even when you face social pressure or the discomfort of being the only one. Groupthink works because it spreads responsibility so thin that nobody feels responsible. Courage is taking that responsibility back. It's understanding that you are accountable for your own thoughts, even when it's easier to let the group think for you. This doesn't mean being a contrarian just for the sake of it. It means grounding your dissent in reason and evidence. It's the courage to say, "I see it differently, and here's why." It's the courage to ask the stupid question that everyone else is afraid to ask. And it's the courage to admit you've changed your mind based on new evidence, which might be the hardest and most courageous act of all. Start small. The next time you're in a group and you get that gut feeling of a false consensus, politely voice a question. Could we explore the potential downsides of this? Or, I have a slightly different take. You might be surprised how often other people were thinking the exact same thing, just waiting for one person to be brave enough to speak. The rise of collective stupidity isn't some far-off academic problem. It is the defining struggle of our time, and the battlefield is your own mind. The forces of conformity are powerful, but they aren't invincible. They feed on our passivity, our fear, and our intellectual laziness. They wither in the face of humility, solitude, and courage. To think for yourself has become a radical act. It's a rebellion against the algorithm, the mob, and the comfortable sleep of unthinking agreement. It's the highest form of personal responsibility and the most vital service you can give to a free society. So, the next time you feel the pull of the herd, the next time you're tempted to nod along, just to keep the peace, remember, your mind is your own. It's the last and most important frontier of your freedom. Protect it, cultivate it, and have the courage to use it. That is how we turn the tide. That is how we begin the slow, difficult, but essential work of building a society that isn't just collectively connected, but collectively wise. If you believe the world needs more independent thought, subscribe and share this video, and let us know in the comments. When was the last time you changed your mind on a big issue, and what caused it?